After nearly a decade of waiting, Dead Island 2 is finally here, and it released to some pretty mixed reviews from both critics and also gamers around the world. There was at one point where no one even knew if Dead Island 2 was gonna come out, and yet it came out swinging. It was released in a better state than most AAA games are nowadays. And me, I'm kind of just slapped in the middle of them. It's by no means a perfect game. It has its issues. Dead Island 2 very much feels like a proper sequel to Dead Island 1 and Dead Island Riptide, where super fun and ridiculous gameplay was its strong suit, but mainly weaker in other aspects. Had this game come out in 2014, 2015, it would easily be a purchase for everyone. But expectations have changed over time. Gamers expect way more, and rightfully so. Games are so goddamn expensive now. Like seriously, $70 for that? Or better yet, this piece of shit? To put it simply, I am torn. I'm at a crossroads. On one hand, I love Dead Island 2. I want to go down this path. But then there's the other side, which I absolutely despise. And I'm going to be brutally honest with you. This game, its sequel baits so damn hard. And even from interviews with developers, they have stated that Dead Island 2 is very much chapter 1. Whether you like it or not, there will be more Dead Islands coming, and even if they don't release more titles, there are more expansion DLCs coming out. So I want to take this time, a good old traditional review from Oni, to voice my concerns. So, a lot of what's coming might sound super critical. You know those zombies at the military base that look like JPEGs? We are definitely going to talk about them and whatever the hell is going on here. Please know that all this comes from a place of passion, with wanting to see things improve in the future. So with that said, let's move on to our first section, which can actually be summarized in 3 words: brutal, repetitive, and Jerrycans. But first, let's get a quick message from our sponsor. So in celebration of the release of Dead Island 2, I decided to partner with YouTooz. And today we're actually going to be unboxing the Dead Island 2 collection that they sent. Hey, there she is. Amy, my absolute favorite. Should I take her out? I know a lot of people are going to be upset with me if I do, so I'm going to do it. And there she is. I gotta say, I absolutely love the weapon she has in game. We're going to put her next to the other Amy right here. And then we have Butcho. I gotta say, Butcho was my absolute favorite. He was the final boss that we played at PAX East, and just staring at him, it really puts a smile on my face, because the video that we filmed from there just did incredible, and seeing how far the channel has come from there to now is insanity. But again, thank you so much to YouTooz for sponsoring this video. These are absolutely awesome, and if you like what you see, use the link down below in the description and also the pinned comment. Head over to their website, get Amy, get Butcho. It's a nice little addition to add to your collection. And with that said, let's get back to it now. I love Dead Island 2 because of the absolutely brutal combat and the satisfying gameplay that it offers. Most of my enjoyment comes from it. Absolutely decimating zombies in creative and horrific ways leaves me with an age restriction. That right there is how you know it's good. Myself, I'm a huge zombie fan. My channel is literally dedicated to exactly that. It's a passion of mine. I'm also a pretty big Dying Light fan, and honestly, a lot of the things that I wanted in Dying Light 2 and in general other zombie games are in Dead Island 2. For example, the game really embraces the infection here. They went as far as implementing a full fury mode where you can force your infected state, turn into a zombie, rip your prey away limb by limb. But it doesn't end here. You can even upgrade yourself with skill cards in order to enhance your abilities further. You didn't see that in Dying Light 2, and it was a highly requested feature. The flesh system too, it's awesome to see, and it's actually brand new to the zombie genre. Therefore, it makes things really feel fresh and unique. But the reality is, the system can only really hold this game so far until the issues start to leak out. The gameplay is dumb fun. It's easily the best way to put it. But as time goes on, it could be seen as a little bit repetitive in some areas. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that certain situations the game will put you in will feel very similar often. The actual weapons and skills themselves aren't repetitive. Weapon variety is perfect, but what can be repetitive is the actual animation. So nearly every single weapon has this heavy attack that you can charge up to perform on a zombie, and most of them, there's only one per weapon. So when you commit these attacks, you will see the same animation over and over. It looks cool, it looks great. Seeing a staff pierce a zombie's face and blood gushing out makes me tingle. But it does get old after a little bit of time. It loses its wow factor. It does in a way incentivize you to try out other weapons, but if you have that favorite, the one you modded up beautifully to do a lot of damage, you may be turned off by how often the repeats happen. But the repetitive nature doesn't end here. It actually also comes from the puzzles and even the world too. And that, my friends, is where the Jerrycan comes in. I never would have thought I would be dedicating an entire section to a gas canister. It's a mechanic that I both love and also hate. Picking up the can and pouring out an infinite amount of fuel anywhere you like, it's absurdly ridiculous and makes zombie killing hilarious. Even going and picking up the water, washing the blood away, it's oddly satisfying. The caustic one is my absolute favorite because it rips the flesh away straight from the zombies. But there is just an abundance of Jerrycans literally everywhere in LA. And for California, the state leading the charge in electric cars, there's so many gas cans here. It's quite ironic, I have to say. They really are a ton of fun to use, but the game is maybe a little bit too reliant on them in other aspects. So as you play, you will be surprised at how involved these Jerrycans are in completing a level. Puzzles are solved with Jerrycans. You sometimes cannot proceed forward because you need to pour water in a certain area to continue. And then you accidentally sparked up the entire area. It does make for some funny moments, but after a little bit of time, most of the puzzles just boil down to making a water path so electricity can flow, or you have to put out some fires. It is enjoyable at times, but don't expect these puzzles to be challenging in any way at all. With other puzzles, there's also the pipe pressures, which are very, very simple. You'll also be doing batteries and circuit breakers, taking them out of walls and placing them in certain spots to proceed forward. But Jerrycans and the circuit breakers are mainly the two tools that you will use to complete puzzles. Like I said in the beginning of this video, repetition is not necessarily a bad thing. You're just going to be finding yourself in similar situations pretty often, and that's exactly what happens here with the puzzles and the Jerrycans. I'm really not exaggerating with how important a goddamn Jerrycan is in Dead Island 2. But to move away from the repetitive nature to change things up, you need to really utilize the crafting system and also the skill card. The modding system is particularly enjoyable because it allows you to tweak so many different aspects of your weapons. Do you want to increase attack speed? It's got you covered. What about force or trauma? You can do that too. Gameplay may seem very slow in the beginning, because it is. I can probably download games quicker on Comcast than killing some of these enemies. When you first get off the plane in the prologue and they give you that heavy blunt weapon, it's not really an accurate showcase of the speed of what's possible later on. Step into my theater, have a seat. Here's what the first 10 minutes of gameplay look like, and here's 20 hours in. You get to a point where your arsenal of weapons is triggering so many abilities. They are proccing explosions, and it's absurdly satisfying. My favorite one was having a tier 3 electric mod paired with a mod that explodes enemies if they have a status effect. Those go hand in hand, and if you know what you're doing, you're gonna run into ridiculous situations where so much is happening on screen. It's awesome. What I do love too is when you dismantle those weapons, you gain back most of your material, so you can use it again for other weapons. Pretty good quality of life right here. There's also a pretty straightforward weapon repairment system in this game, and it's much better than using a charm to do so. The weapon crafting itself in the later levels is a little bit of a mixed bag. Some builds and crafting are really difficult to obtain due to the scarcity of certain materials. The economy for some of the infected materials is very unbalanced, and I hope that gets fixed soon. A material increase is needed as soon as possible because the current state of it is lacking very much right now. And while the game has a wide selection of abilities and mods, some of them may feel redundant. More variety would have been appreciated, as some of the mods are just better versions of other mods. I would say you could really start tuning your weapons in favor of your playstyle about 3 hours in. That's when you will see a significant impact on gameplay, because by that point too, you're gonna unlock skill cards. And oh my god, don't even get me started about the skill cards because I actually love them. As you level up, you earn skill cards that serve as your overall progression and significantly enhances your power level. The game encourages you to experiment with different builds and methods to kill zombies. Some skill cards can be overpowered, others are more situational. It really does boil down to personal preference here and there. And while some players have criticized the skill card system, I think it's a refreshing alternative to the traditional skill tree. However, over time, the existing cards may become stale. That's a common issue with games like this, especially if there's a meta of sorts on the best cards, which there absolutely is. And because of that, you can see how less impressive it will look over time. Dambuster should definitely consider adding in more with each DLC to keep the game fresh and increase its replay value. They could go one step further and allow the cards to be upgraded later down the road. Just some food for thought for you there. One of the game's strengths is that it allows you to have fun without penalizing you for being stupid overpowered. So if enough time and effort, you can... No, the computer went black. So if enough time and effort, you can create a build that allows you to slash through your enemies while continuously regaining health, or just stay in fury mode indefinitely, which is an incredible feeling. On the other hand, being overpowered can be a drawback since it takes away the challenge of certain enemies, making them really easy to defeat. And when you're playing the story, which, by the way, spoilers, but I promise you, you are not missing anything. If you take the time to complete side quests and activities before diving into the main story, you'll easily plow through your enemies and become unstoppable. Like I said, rewarding, but it could backfire because it reduces the challenge level significantly. And if you're playing co-op, if you're playing with a friend or two friends, it's going to be even easier. You could get to a point where you become so damn powerful, you demolish the final boss in literal seconds. The final boss is supposed to be the end-all be-all, a proper difficult fight, and that simply doesn't happen here. Don't even get me started about the final boss, by the way. It's a copy and pasted enemy. There's also no difficulty modifiers either, only one difficulty, no new game plus, so even if you wanted to opt in for a tougher fight, you cannot, which I also think is severely hurting this game's replayability. Fingers crossed it's a post-launch thing, maybe it's coming later down the road, but the exclusion of them on launch is very disappointing. But let's shift a little bit, let's dive deeper into the story. The Slayers, they are all interesting enough for players to find one to relate with. I chose Ryan because male strippers. Each character has their own motivations, but they don't matter currently. Remember how Ryan was looking for his brother? Well, nothing actually pans out from that. He's still lost. He's gone forever. He's somewhere in the Costco parking lot. Upsetting that nothing occurred with their backstories. I'm hoping future stories tackle that issue. I also talked about this in my impressions video, but dialogue could be very weird at times. Mainly very early on into the game when you're talking to certain NPCs, it feels like they're programmed to respond appropriately to one or two Slayers, but not the others. So therefore dialogue comes across as a little bit awkward. Your Slayer may say something completely random or is ignored because the plot needs to move forward. Call it a nitpick or whatever you want, but it was noticeable enough for me to go ahead and call it out. Though I will say as the story progresses, it becomes less noticeable, or better yet, you get used to it. The story won't keep you on the edge of your seat. It's very ordinary. The ending is so abrupt, it's worse than the ending of Bloody Ties. The sad part is, usually in these deep dive reviews that we do on the channel, I have so much to talk about every single time. But even after playing the story of Dead Island 2, I have nothing interesting to say. It is just painfully mediocre. I think when it really got me hooked was in these two missions where you're working side by side with your allies. You're going through the sewers, you're fighting, you're inspired to do good for your peers, and the next thing you know, the fucking credits roll. Jokes aside, the last two missions and also the mission where you fury out for the first time, I found to be the most compelling. I very much wouldn't expect anything from this story. I think you should go in with the lowest of expectations in that regard. You are not playing Dead Island for the story. You're playing for that gameplay. The story is mainly just an excuse to get you from one place to another. Move through location and location. And as you go and move through these smaller districts, you will notice it has an amazing attention to detail. It feels like the environmental storytelling and world building here really shine through. But unfortunately, that charm is kind of lost in the bigger districts. The metro and infected hive area where the heart lives, I was blown away and thoroughly impressed with what they developed here. It was like a new horror that I didn't even know existed. It was phenomenal, navigating myself through literal guts pulsing as I stepped on the veins. Truly my favorite location in all of LA. I did enjoy my time with the bigger districts. They just weren't as compelling to me than the smaller ones, as it felt they had more love, care, and effort went into it, making sure every nook and cranny was worth exploring. Sometimes it just felt a little empty. What I can say was really interesting and what I loved was the side quests. The characters that you encounter in side activities, they all know their place and they don't overstay their welcome. If you start to find a character annoying, don't worry, they'll either die or you'll move on and never see them again. Some are ridiculous while others are very memorable. The lost and found quests are easily the best. These missions require you to find a clue, analyze it to track down a named zombie to be slain. And once you kill them, they drop a key, and you can take that key to unlock a crate that has loot inside. It's like trying to hunt down treasure, and solving these mysteries with just a sliver of information was way more rewarding than I thought it could be. I was eagerly completing these quests back to back. I was getting way more excited each time I saw a blue or a red notification popping up on my screen than I was for yellow. Yellow is the main story, couldn't care less. But blue, that blue notification, Bert, my homie, I'm on my way. I do want to go and make some final points where major disappointments are. When playing Dead Island 2, I was more than willing to overlook certain aspects just because the gameplay is that enjoyable. However, if this was any other game, I would be very upset and annoyed. Because while the graphics look beautiful and it runs flawlessly on most systems, there are some questionable actions here. For example, there's these zombies at the military base, which I think speak for themselves. My favorite is your character's reflection in mirrors, which simply does not exist. And if we go further, only your flashlight will appear. If you go to mirrors, they are not proper reflections of what you are looking at. It's like you're looking into a weird dimension here. What the hell is this? Granted, what I'm pointing out has no effect on killing zombies, which is where the game shines. In a future sequel, I would love to see some engine upgrades here. They have such an amazing attention to detail, and then there's things like this, which just take you out of the experience completely. Lastly, the music is quite underwhelming. There are no compelling themes or memorable soundtracks except for the Slayer theme song. That was a banger. Maybe my expectations are too high because of the exceptional soundtrack that Dying Light 2 was. That was on a whole new level. But I'm not walking away from the Dead Island 2 soundtrack with a theme or any song in mind. It is severely lacking any compelling music here. Overall, despite all of my criticisms and issues with Dead Island 2, I'm still pretty much satisfied with the experience. I think for most zombie fans, this will scratch your zombie slaying itch and hold you over for about 20 solid hours. I spent around 30 to 40 hours playing the game, and I felt like I got my money's worth. The main source of replayability currently is playing through as another Slayer to see different dialogue options and how they react. The story still plays out entirely the same, so replayability is a little bit lacking. I think if you adjust your expectations accordingly, I believe you'll have a blast with this game. However, if you go in with higher expectations than what you're actually getting, you'll be severely disappointed. I highly recommend this game to fans of the Dead Island franchise. You know exactly what you're getting into. It feels like a proper continuation of the franchise for the better. But overall, those are just my thoughts, and I'd be very curious to hear what you have to say. Do you like Dead Island 2? Are you having a fun time, or are you not? Moving forward, I plan on covering both Dead Island 2 and Dying Light 2 equally on this channel, so stay tuned to that. And before this video does end, I want to give another thank you to YouTooz for sponsoring this video. And with all that said, I'll see you later. Bye bye.